Hey folks, I am Dave, the not-so-evil Evil Viking 13, and I am joined for a very special Witcher 3 hypecast by none other than JERMGaming.
Hey guys, what's up?
So, we really have no set, script for this video. This is not a sponsored video or anything that we really planned out carefully. This is more of just our expression of our, honestly, fanboyish, giddy excitement over The Witcher 3, because with me and Jeremiah are book readers, which makes us superior, right? I think.
Which means we can look down and go, well, the game is good, but
the book did it like this.
How would you like 20 pages of lore in between people walking a step? You would? Well, do I have a series that could totally be 2 books for you?
Can you say 20 pages of lore for walking slower for me, please?
See, that probably differentiates us. Like, we're both book readers, but
yeah.
I found a lot of the lore parts very tedious, in that learning all the backstory of the kingdoms can be cool, but it doesn't tie into a lot of what's actually happening in the story.
That's true.
Because so many people, just like in Game of Thrones, so many people are mentioned. You hear like half a page of their entire life story, and then they'll be mentioned again 3 books later, and you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, they're the thing, and I'm like, no, never. Like, there were so many times like, and then so-and-so came up, and I was like, all right, well, great. You know, sometimes I would reread a section or two, but
yeah.
like the lore parts for me were quite a bit slow. But the books,
I loved them, but for me, what got me were a couple of times when there was like a time shift. I think it was a translation issue where the transition wasn't quite clear. I'd be 2 pages in before I realized I'm in like a different time frame entirely than like the previous chapter.
Yeah, because in the fan translations, like sometimes it'd be just a paragraph would change, and you're in a kind of a different time, and you're not 100% sure if it's a flashback or a flash forward, so you just wait for any cues to show up of what's happened in the story thus far, and try to pick it up from there. But I do like that the books force the lore on you as opposed to the games, which I think if you just played the core story in the games, you will not understand most of the story of The Witcher. I say that because I went back and tried to replay The Witcher 1 and 2 before The Witcher 3 came out. I failed miserably because the games are really long and cool stuff came out in the meantime, but I played probably 10 or 11 hours of The Witcher 1, and not doing any side quests and stuff, I did not pick up on much of the actual story. And we're going to try to keep things pretty spoiler-free. If you haven't played either game or read any of the books, there will be some mild spoilers. But if you're familiar with the games, at least, this should be major spoiler-free. But all I knew at the beginning of The Witcher 1, like after a couple hours, is Geralt has some sort of amnesia.
Right.
These people are his friends. He's got to go somewhere to find some people that attacked his friends. Like, it's pretty nebulous, which is a shame because there actually is a ton going on if you know who all the people are and what's happening.
And I think that's the line that CD Projekt Red is trying to walk, is to provide the fan service for the book readers while still letting people who just want to dive in and play a medieval, gritty RPG just enjoy it. I'm looking here on Wikipedia, and the core book series is 6 books long. I think only 3 in English right now officially. There are some pretty great fan translations out there, but it's a pretty solid book series. It's very enjoyable to read, but I guess it's fair to say that not everyone's going to do that before diving into the game. I'm glad that I did. I really enjoyed the books, like I already said. And going back to The Witcher 1, just for a few hours last night after having read the books, I was actually just amazed at how connected everything was. Keeping things majorly spoiler-free, the way that Geralt's amnesia connects to the books. You know, you start out in The Witcher 1, and it almost feels like a video game trope. Like, oh, you've been injured, and you can't remember who you are. Like, let's go on this.
You've lost all your powers, and your weapons are gone. And
go through this tutorial and learn all your powers again. It's like, oh, it's the video game trope where you're injured and forgetful. Well, it's not so much of a trope if you read the books. Without spoiling much, the Witcher games aren't official canon according to the author. But CD Projekt Red has basically been given the license to take the last book in the series and say, what could happen after this? And they've done just an excellent job of taking those just really insane moments in the last Witcher book and doing that what happens next game series. And this should be, I think, the last game in the trilogy that they were planning.
We'll see. I mean, there's been a lot of last games that get sequels because they do really well.
Right. From what I've heard, though, this might be Geralt's last game. It might be more Witcher games.
Ah, that's true. Yeah, that makes sense.
But
spoiler free.
Yeah, like we don't know the Witcher 3 story. Apparently there's been some leaks of the console versions, but I've been avoiding reading up on those. I want to go into the story without any spoilers, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've heard that this might be Geralt's last game. I don't know if maybe he might die, he might just retire to... Where would a Witcher retire even? I don't even know how that works.
Well, he would, I mean, Kaer Morhen, maybe?
I mean, it gets wrecked pretty badly in The Witcher 1.
That's true, but I don't know. It could be rebuilt with magic. I'm kind of out on a limb there.
Well, I've heard that there's parts of The Witcher 3, actually significant parts, that take place at Kaer Morhen, so
okay.
Maybe it is partially rebuilt after The Witcher 1 and 2.
You would like to think that at the end of everything, Geralt just gets to retire with his special somebody and just move out into the middle of the wilderness and never have to see or look at humans again and just be totally by himself out in the woods where there aren't any monsters and no one wants to kill him and everything else. Because as you find out over the course of the games, again, major spoilers free, and I think that's the last time we have to say that. Witcher, like, we're not really familiar with Witchers when you start The Witcher 1 unless you've read the books.
Right.
And you kind of figure out who they are through other people reacting to Geralt. Because while Geralt doesn't remember a ton about who he is or what he is, lots of people in the world know who Geralt is. He's a pretty famous person, more of like infamous. He's not a bad guy, but he's a pretty misunderstood guy.
I call him a chaotic neutral.
Chaotic neutral, and it's a old medieval land. Everything's passed on through bards and stories and songs. So there's a whole lot of misinformation out there about Witchers, and there's a whole lot of people who think lots of very strong things about Witchers one way or the other.
Right.
And so Geralt has to experience that throughout all the books, certainly, but then in the games, he's kind of experiencing it with new eyes. So you'd like to think that this game could end with him getting to just leave. Just go away, never come back, and be at peace with a certain somebody.
And that's kind of the bone they try to toss you in the books. It's like the ending for the last book is just so intense and kind of just it's very climactic for sure. But then they kind of have like this hint of like, well, maybe things are kind of okay in the end. I mean, still pretty horrifying, but it's not a terrible ending. And then it's like you wake up in The Witcher 1, the game, and it's like, surprise, throwing you back into this horrible Game of Thrones style fantasy world.
What I think is interesting about the books and the games is there, 6 books, and there's other things you can read too that kind of expand the universe. And then with the 2 games so far, it really is telling one story. Like, it's one overarching story, and there's lots of little stories that happen along the way. But the 5 books especially, like, it's one protracted thing. I mean, it's, 2,000 pages revolving around this one storyline. And it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I'm feeling a little bit weary of it. Not in the sense that I'm tired of the story, but it feels like Geralt's been doing this for so long.
It's true. If you've read all the books, the story of Princess Cirilla and Geralt and Yennefer and Triss is a story that we've been... it's the core story of the Witcher Chronicles. There's some shorter books that have some other short stories taking part, before and after the main trilogy. But for the main part, it really is the same overarching story.
So this is an interesting parallel I noticed reading the books and then going back and skimming through the games. What's the name of the compilation of short stories about The Witcher?
The compilation, I'm scanning right now. I believe that's the Sword of Destiny.
Sword of Destiny, okay. So to me, The Witcher 1 is like Sword of Destiny.
No, the Last Wish, I believe, is actually
Last
the compilation.
Wish. Oh, okay. All right, The Last Wish.
Yeah.
The Witcher 1, because this is really an indie game.
Yeah.
It was started a team of 8 people, grew to something like 80 by the end. I see it as kind of that compilation of short stories. The 5 chapters are vignettes of Geralt going to a place, meeting people, doing a bunch of quests in this one very closed off, by modern standards, very small locations, and then moving on to the next place. And The Witcher 2 is also very similar to that. Although the areas are bigger, there's more characters, more quests, a lot more free roam ability.
A lot more polish.
A lot more polish. It's still building upon that. And then The Witcher 3, as far as I'm concerned, is the first time where the actual vision of the world of The Witcher could be realized.
And that's exactly what the developers
professional
said.
Traveling monster slayer. Like, I think it's really cool, because to me, this is almost like And they've said if you've never played a Witcher game, you can hop right in on this game. And I think that's probably good because I think there's tons of people who, honestly, at this point, I would say don't go back and play the previous games if you're excited for The Witcher 3, because by modern standards, you will be disappointed most likely, unless you really love RPGs. But this is probably the first real Witcher game that can actually live up to the promise of the universe.
Oh, yeah, and let's talk about the universe for just a little bit, because,
Sure.
I mean, anyone who's familiar with our podcast, my channel, knows that I love just absorbing lore. Like, any kind of world that can come with, like, a history book. Like, on my reading list for the next year is the Lord of the Rings histories. I love the main series.
Oh, gosh. The main series is almost dreadfully dull.
I love it. Like, the fact that the Lord of the Rings was started by writing the Elven language and then, like, writing the world and, like, the creation story of the world around that. I love that stuff.
I love you, buddy, but like, I almost want to go to sleep right now just listening to that. Like, which I think is more impressive that we're both super excited about this game for just very, very different reasons. Some similar and some so different. Like,
and that's what's so cool. Like, this can appeal to like a wide range of people. You can be like me and love the tons of connections, the tons of lore. You're the kind of person who starts a game and then like immediately opens the journal to see, okay, what entries do I already have to read? Or you can be the person where you're like, I want to just free roam and have the story like unfold before me and then see how it connects.
Yeah, I want the cinematic experience where I know all the main characters, I know their interactions, I understand what's happening with them, and I know enough about the world to understand what's happening. To me, it doesn't flesh the world out a ton when there's a ton of other stuff happening, unless I go back and replay it or come back to it again. Like, I probably know the universe of Mass Effect really well at this point, because I've played all the games at least twice. But the first time through, I just want story, main characters, and if it's really good, I'll come back later. But I guess I'm just like, I'm a little selfish with my time, and I don't like getting into lore unless I really, really like it, because lore to me is just, it's boring because it pulls away from the story. But that's to each their own. I know you absolutely love it.
I think what it is for me is when I know a backstory, like, it's a little bit dry to read, sure, but when I have a backstory in the back of my mind, a history, a creation story, anything that sets up the world, and then I go into a game that then follows the rules of that lore and like validates it, it just makes it feel authentic. Like it's like I read a history book and then I'm watching it like come into fruition right in front of me. Like, it just feels so real for me at that point. And for the Witcher's world especially, like, I'm a big fan of the Elder Scrolls series. Love those games. I really enjoyed Skyrim. But for me, the world of The Witcher is so much more just immersive because, honestly, it reminds me of this really fantastic mix between, like, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, which are also two of my, and a lot of other people's, favorite fantasy series. You have the grounded medieval setting in The Witcher, where it has tons of just medieval elements, the racism, the brutality, the peasantry, the poor living conditions, the disease, all that stuff just really helps to ground the world. You have different kingdoms that are fighting that have their shields and their coat of arms and all this stuff, where you have all that setup that feels legit. And I love the way that magic is handled in The Witcher. And it's also why I also love the Lord of the Rings series so much when it comes to magic, is because it's like more frequently hinted at than like thrown in your face. Like, not everyone's a mage, not everyone's using magic. There's a lot of legends and discussion of like past magics that you discover, and it's not this everyday thing. In the Witcher world, you have this medieval world combined with like a lot of Eastern European medieval stuff. So you have like a lot of the monsters are based off of Polish and other legends like that you would tell to your kids to make them behave, at night during the medieval periods. The Wild Hunt is a very famous medieval legend from what I understand. So you have the medieval elements, the Polish and Eastern European elements, and then you have this magic that's treated by the people in the world as non-normal. Because, I mean, in real life, magic is not a normal thing. And so when you play a game where people treat it like that, like witchers and mages and witches are treated as outcasts and weirdos, that, for me, just once again helps to ground the story, ground the world, and I'm just all about that immersion.
And it grounds it even more because they need these people They need these magic people, because if I lived in a world with the horrible monsters in the world of The Witcher, I'd be like, magic? Yes, please, sir. Right over here. I'll take some magic.
Take my orange. Take all my orange.
Can you make the 2-story demon zebra moose that we saw in the trailer? Like, can you make that stop eating my town? I don't care if you're magic. Do it. We'll burn you later. Just do this now.
And that's exactly how the people in the world react. Like, the Witchers were used in the world for hundreds of years to basically allow humans to take over the world, to conquer it from the monsters, to take it back from the elves and the dwarves. And now that humanity is basically entrenched via just population explosion, the Witchers are seen as like not needed anymore. They're definitely outcasts. And one of my favorite parallels, once again, I'm gonna wax poetic about lore and history, the parallels between the story of Frankenstein, a story that we're all familiar with, and what happened to the Witcher's fortress is awesome. It's basically almost copied. The townspeople who were tired of the Witchers up there in their castle, lording their abilities over them, rose up and started blaming the Witchers for all their problems, got torches and pitchforks, and literally burned the Witcher's castle to the ground. It's Frankenstein's monster story, basically, right there in the Witcher's world. And it just once again adds that familiarity while having enough stuff that's different to make it exciting again.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the world, and that's the books. And as you guys can probably tell, even though Jeremiah likes to act like he's not big into the lore, he's pretty big into this stuff too.
I'm really big into the story of the Witcher series.
Yeah.
I'm less into the lore, but I think it's a very interesting world from what I do understand of it. And I think it does, like you said, have lots of interesting parallels to our own history and mythology. And it's obvious. I mean, it was written by someone who lives in our universe, so
obviously, yeah. Thankfully.
But yeah, but I'm really, really invested in the actual story, and the most spoiler-free version we can give. If you've seen the Witcher 3 trailer, you'll already have heard most of this if you read anything about the game.
Yeah.
The Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, or the Witcher who the story is primarily concerned with, he is very interested in finding Ciri, Princess Cirilla, who's called the Child of Destiny. And he spends quite a bit of the books trying to get to her. He's with her for a bit, and then he spends the rest of the books pretty much trying to get back to her to protect her. That's not really a spoiler. Like, they're on the same sides, maybe too much of a stretch, but he feels somewhat responsible for her, has a bit of a paternal affection for her.
Paternal's a good description, because in the books, don't Yennefer and Geralt almost like unofficially adopt Ciri?
Yeah, they pretty much adopt, like they're surrogate parents.
Yeah.
For the most part. So I really like that storyline. It's kind of an uncommon storyline for a fantasy universe. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I've seen this story told quite like this before.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I'm excited because the game seems to be promising that it's really going to wrap this story up, which for people, like, I haven't been following the Witcher series since the 90s. I've just been interested since 2008. But that's still a really long time, and I would like to see how this thing can wrap up.
Definitely.
And if it takes me 100 hours to do it, all the better. Should we maybe hop into that? Like, I think we've talked story enough. Why, for people who haven't played The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2?
Yes.
They're not going to understand why the world of The Witcher looks so amazing. They might think, well, it looks kind of like a newer Skyrim. You know,
well, now they might get it a bit more after all that.
Maybe, but maybe they went into this not really understanding why is this such a big deal.
Yeah.
And the reason is this might be one of the best RPGs of all time. Obviously, it's not out yet, so we don't know. But from everything they have showed us and everything they have seemed to have promised us, this might be one of the best RPGs ever made that just happens to be wrapping up a really, really awesome fantasy storyline.
Exactly.
And the amount of things available in the world, you're not like the Destiny hero that shows up and has to close all the Oblivion gates or save the whole world from destruction necessarily. Witcher does, I mean, Geralt does things like that, but I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, he's never like had to save the entire universe from extinction or anything. There are plagues and pestilences and horrible monsters and stuff. There are very localized, terrible things, but it's never been like the fate of all the universe, is it?
The games have some pretty far-reaching scope that Geralt's actions do affect like kingdoms and stuff, but at the same time, I would say that Geralt is used as like a puppet or a pawn just as often as he's actually making changes that help people. He's used by Full Test in Witcher 2 for like the entire first section of the game, and it's implied that between the two games, Witcher 1 and 2, he was in the same boat where he's just being used.
Right.
And a lot of what he does in the books too is traveling different places, doing what Witchers do, fighting monsters, and then getting caught up in stuff against his will. So I think we've kind of established why Witcher fans, if no one else, are excited about this game. Like, this game could be a fraction of the size, could just be a continuation of the story, the excellent stories from Witcher 1, 2, and of course the ties back to the books. And Witcher fans would just be ecstatic. Like, if this just wrapped up the story in a semi-open world format, I'd be so on board. But that, from what we understand, was not enough for the developers. Let's talk now, Jeremiah, about why everyone should just be excited about The Witcher 3 just as a game, as a 2015 RPG that does have this exciting world and characters, coming along with it. But let's just talk about the scope and why we're on the hype train outside of all of our fanboyish stuff with the books.
All right, well, here's an easy comparison to draw. What would you say is the most popular, famous open world RPG series of all time?
DayZ. Obviously, I think the most common answer would be the Elder Scrolls series.
Right. And how is the storytelling in the Elder Scrolls?
I mean,
like cutscenes, voice acting.
I would say it's good. It's not anything amazing.
It's RPG good.
Yeah.
It's RPG good. Okay. How is the combat?
Well, if you can imagine combat from an RPG in the early 2000s, it hasn't changed much since then for the Elder Scrolls.
Okay.
It's not very impactful or dynamic. You look at the combat in like Shadows of Mordor, and that is just so intense, and I mean the sword hits and everything, like you feel like it's combat. In Skyrim, it feels like you're just doing the sword swings to do the die roll. It's not very exciting.
Yep, exactly. It feels kind of like a die roll. Like you can just spam the hit button over and over and over again, and you'll just beat the other person to death.
Yeah, there's quick click and long click.
Now, what would you say is a popular modern series with extremely fast, brutal combat?
DayZ.
No, once again, that's incorrect.
Chivalry might be a good answer, but I think the most common answer would definitely be the Dark Souls series and of course Bloodborne that just came out.
So what if you could have the combat of Dark Souls, but more arcadey, kind of like Shadows of Mordor, but with the depth of Dark Souls with your potions and magic and all kinds of other things. Then you could drop that into a world that was larger and more dense than Skyrim, the largest of all the Elder Scrolls games. And then you could pair that with storytelling that is not The Last of Us good, but it appears to be Mass Effect good, which of course means nothing to you because you're a pagan who hasn't played the Mass Effect games. But
can we
for
say
RPG,
is Game of Thrones good at times?
Well, Game of Thrones is a TV show, so it's hard to draw a comparison, but like Mass Effect is very cinematic in its storytelling. Like even when you have the different decisions you have to make during cutscenes and stuff, like you do in the Witcher games, it still maintains a feeling of this is important, this is fast, stuff's happening right now, like we got to do this now. So if you combine all those things together, and then it's also one of the better looking games you've ever seen. Would that be something you might be interested in?
I think I've already said this once already on this cast, but take my Orins. Those not familiar, Orins are the currency of the Witcher world. I've seen that image so many times. It's the Fry from Futurama image where someone photoshopped him to be wearing Geralt's armor and the hat, and he has like a bag of Orins, and he's like thrusting it at the screen. Take my Orins. I see it posted on every Witcher Facebook post.
Now, obviously, we don't know if the game is going to be any good at all yet.
Yeah.
Reviews are not out. The game is not out. But based on literally every single preview I've read where someone's gone to play the game, and based on all the footage we've seen.
And the confidence of the developers. Let's not forget. They're letting review copies go out 2 weeks before the game launches, and reviews will start appearing 1 week before launch.
I think it's pretty much impossible for this not to be a good game.
Yes, yeah, definitely, I agree.
Almost definitely a very good game, and it has the possibility to be transcendent for the genre. I mean, it really does have the possibility. Like, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if this thing sells like 8 or 9 million units over the next year, because people who bought their next-gen consoles hoping for the promise of huge, massive games, if they've been excited for the Elder Scrolls, The Witcher might fill that void for them. For people who just want like a big hack and slash violent medieval type game, The Witcher could be that. For people who want like a really deep story RPG, The Witcher could be that. The Witcher has a lot of stuff in it. About the only thing The Witcher is not is child friendly.
And I'm so happy to see like a Game of Thrones style RPG. Even Skyrim was a little bit, tame.
It was M, but it was a soft M. And The Witcher 3, like, it's a little bit exploitative at times, but the world is just, I would say, almost realistically dark. Like, if you read any actual history about medieval times, it sucked. It straight sucked. It was not, like, it was really combat. Good for the people. Actually, it wasn't even really good. It was a little good for the people who were super, super rich. Yeah. But it still kind of sucked for them. But it really sucked for all the poor people. And so that's the world of The Witcher. Like, everything's miserable. Like, your day-to-day life is you're poor, you can't get enough food, there's a bunch of disease, and then the 2-story tall demon zebra moose is coming to attack you. Like, it's just, there aren't any good days.
Also, your neighbors want to hang you because you're technically an elf with pointy ears.
Yeah, like, it's just such a mature story, and I like that there are more games like that being made for adults without having to resort to just being over the top like GTA. But can just be like, hey, you want a complex storyline with more lore than you probably care about, and you want like an extremely long experience that's going to take a big investment from you to get the most out of. This game should have that in spades.
I agree, and I like how you lay that out. I would say that if you come to the table with The Witcher 3 with no experience for the previous games, as long as the game runs well and the story pays off like it looks like it's going to, like you said, like all the previews, the leaked copies people are playing, everyone's loving it. So if you come to the table with just, hey, this game looks cool, you're going to really enjoy it from how everything's looking. If you come to the table as an RPG fan, this is going to be most likely an excellent game that's going to probably define the genre for quite a few years. I think like a Skyrim level of impact, if not more so.
And probably a Dragon Age level of length.
Ooh, yeah. And then let's go ahead and just add that third tier. If you're like us and you've read all the books, you really get into the world and the characters, you also like RPGs, and you also like nice things, then like you said, this could be transcendent. This could end friendships, it could end jobs, it could end a lot of stuff.
Like, and it's bad that it's coming out like a month after GTA 5 came out to end friendships and jobs.
I just hit 55% in GTA 5 this weekend finally. I'm so screwed. But yeah, you talk about the brutality of the world. I wanted to mention the combat a little bit too.
Yes,
I think some people are going to talk about like, oh, the gibbing and the gore, like it's so over the top. But sword fighting is a nasty business. One of my favorite discussions before one of my other favorite games, Rome 2 and the Attila Total War series came out. In Ancient Combat, it was actually very uncommon for large legions and units of men to fight to anywhere close to like 20% casualties, because the combat was so brutal. The armies would take maybe 10% casualties and then retreat, because you can only take so much of watching your friends and comrades being butchered limb by limb all around you before you're like, let's just try this again tomorrow. Like,
pretty morale breaking.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrifying. And the lengths that the developers have gone to make that visceral combat come through is, for me, really exciting. I love Shadows of Mordor and how impactful that combat is. I love in the Dark Souls series how strategic the combat is. And it looks like, by all accounts, that's what we're going to have in The Witcher 3. There's a stamina system. There is a parry system, a dodge system. There's all those elements from all of everyone's favorite combat games all coming together. And I was actually watching a video, an older video now, about The Witcher 3 earlier, where they were talking about the sword fighting. And they want all of the enemies in the game to sword fight with very realistic medieval sword fighting techniques. So you're going to see real moves used in combat. And what's really cool is, in the books, the Witchers are supposed to be mutants, right?
Right.
They're not superhuman, but they're better than human. They're like human 2.0, if you will. And so their goal for Geralt's moves and all of his motion capture for the animation was they wanted him to be Hollywood. He spins when he doesn't really have to spin. He dodges in fancy ways. He's basically showing off because he can, because he's
a
just
professional.
Good. Yeah, he's a professional.
He's not the poor, starving city watch. He does this for a living. He kills people on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis.
Sometimes a daily basis. And they do a really good job of having that difference in combat. Just a little fun trivia bit. Someone was pointing out on the Witcher subreddit that one of Geralt's finishing moves, where he grabs his sword by the blade and then hits his enemy like right at the hilt and like jerks the sword back and like cuts their neck. They're like, why is this move in all the Witcher games? And someone did some research and discovered that that's actually a medieval fighting technique. You would use that on armored enemies where your sword was not going to be able to get through the plate armor. So you would grab your sword carefully by the blade and hit them very carefully, dodge the attack from the enemy, and then swing at the neck joint of the armor to like literally just either stun them or dent the armor or get right in there. And then if you got through the armor at the joint, you would yank the blade to cut them. And then from there, hopefully they'd be stunned enough where you could kind of work them over like a lobster more carefully, which even that sounds horrific.
Again, medieval times really, really sucked for pretty much everybody.
And then when you add in the magic and the racism with the elves and the dwarves and all the other stuff going on in the Witcher's universe, it's just, it's super unpleasant. But on the other hand, the world looks gorgeous. This game could be graphic defining as well. We're not going to see the PC ultra settings until the game launches. And
now, actually, can we park there for a minute?
Let's do that, yeah.
Because I feel like we both have good things to contribute to this discussion. There is a lot of deliberation online, which that's the nicest way I can refer to it, that people think that this has received the same treatment as Watch Dogs did. Watch Dogs famously had an amazing E3 initial showing.
Right.
And then a year later when they showed the game again, it was distinctly less amazing. And people did side-by-side comparisons, and it looked like it had lost one console generation.
Yeah, it was horrific.
And then the actual game came out, and it looked good, but not amazing. It looked like GTA 4 good, maybe a little better.
Yeah.
So people are worried that the same exact thing has happened this time around. Now, we're really only talking about this because plenty of people who are going to be listening to this have probably experienced the same thing.
It's in every discussion thread almost.
Exactly. One, you should trust these developers when they say, like, when they say anything, basically. CD Projekt Red is one of the real good guys in the industry. They're like Bohemia, and forget everything you hate about DayZ if you're one of those people. You know, Bohemia takes care of its fans.
They care. They truly care.
Yeah. And CD Projekt Red does as well. They have the best version that Steam could ever be, and it can't reach Steam's scale because of what it is. But GOG, Good Old Games, is pretty much the best way to you could possibly buy a game online.
You know what? I actually have a quick story, Jeremiah, about how much you can trust these developers. Just as an example, The Witcher 2 was pirated pretty heavily because it has no DRM. You can just copy and paste the game, basically. And there was a period of time right after The Witcher 2 launched where one of the publishers that was doing, I think, some of the box copies of The Witcher 2 was organizing a lawsuit against some of the pirates that had been caught downloading The Witcher 2 illegally. First of all, screw you guys. This is a developer you should be supporting for sure, outside of the fact that piracy is definitely wrong in general. But CD Projekt Red, the developers of the Witcher series, actually stepped forward and publicly said, hey, publisher, we're not okay with you doing this. We don't like piracy, but we don't like going after our fans. Sure, they're stealing our game, but they're fans. And I was just like, come on, who can be mad at these guys? Like, these guys truly care about The Witcher as a series and about their fans and about the PC platform as well.
Yeah, and they've said before, like, the best way to get someone to buy the game is not to put terrible DRM on everything. It's to make the purchased experience so much better than the pirated experiences, which is why they provide, for people who buy through their website, you can get all the wallpapers, you can get character art, you can get all kinds of really cool bonuses. You can get the higher quality versions of the trailers they put online and stuff. And they do all that to thank you. So said all that to say, when they say the game looks amazing and you haven't even seen the best settings, I believe them 100%. And Dave believes them 100%. Now, everything you're seeing online, I don't care if it says it's from an Xbox One or a PC or whatever, YouTube compression is cutting that quality by a factor of 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, and this is something as a photographer, I feel like a lot of people just don't understand this, and it's okay because this doesn't impact what they do on a daily basis. But for me, this is a big deal. A lot of the screenshots that are going around, people are comparing the game at different times of day. And games just in the past 5 or 6 years have gotten to the point where they can simulate a day-night cycle that actually looks good and is somewhat realistic.
Yeah.
And the lighting can actually look like it really would, albeit the fantastical, overdone video game version. And The Witcher 3, they've been showing lots of really beautiful sunset pictures or video clips where, you know, Geralt's riding through the forest or through some town or something, and it's called the golden hour. The hour, or really the half hour before the sun slips below the horizon. And the lighting is just gorgeous. It's because the light is most diffused and refracted through the Earth's atmosphere, because when it's almost at the horizon, it's traveling through the most amount of atmosphere before it gets to you. And everything is soft. It has that beautiful golden glow. There are no harsh shadows. There are no harsh shadows anywhere. Everything is like soft, diffused light. The colors are saturated and warm, and everything looks great. And as a photographer, you want to take pictures during the golden hour for everything.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best time to take pictures of anything. Well, they've also showed normal daytime clips of him riding around at like 2 in the afternoon and just doing normal stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people are comparing these two images together and going, well, look how nasty the foliage looks. And look at like the draw distance isn't as good and everything else. This is a huge open world game with crazy different lighting conditions.
Yeah,
if you've never played Arma 3, you wouldn't know. But if you've played Arma 3, this is the exact same thing. Arma 3 can look absolutely gorgeous, or it can look really flat and boring. And the difference is 4 hours of in-game time. So until you have seen an A to B comparison of initial footage with footage from now at the same time of day in the same location, you have to match everything to tell if this game has been downscaled at all. Personally, from what I've seen from super compressed online videos, I don't see it. Now, this doesn't look like Crysis. Okay, I mean, this isn't going to be the best looking game that's ever come out. But I think it's going to be the best looking game that's this big. Yeah. I mean, GTA 5 certainly is going to give it a run for its money, because GTA 5 looks incredible on the PC for such a huge open world and has an awesome lighting system and stuff. But I think this will look at least as good as GTA 5, which is an awesome looking game.
And I think The Witcher 3's characters for sure are going to beat GTA 5's by far. GTA 5 being primarily a third-person game.
And it's a little more over the top. It's a little more cartoony. So it's more of a styling thing. Like if you look at the quality of the foliage and stuff in GTA 5, it's amazing. And then the characters are a little more, you know, they're a little worse. But I think The Witcher 3, it's all going to be good from what I can tell.
Really good. Really, really good. And I want to actually, talking about the comparison, you brought the photographer's point of view. I'm going to bring the 3D artist's point of view.
That's why I thought we should talk about it. We each have good things to contribute to this.
One of the favorite images that people are going around and posting is an image from a very early trailer where Geralt is riding up to a castle wall. And the corner of the castle wall looks really cool, right? Wow, that's a sentence you wouldn't think you'd hear very often. The corner of the wall looks really cool.
Most people wouldn't say that sentence, to be fair.
Let's talk about why it looks cool. So it's the stone castle corner, right, of the outside wall.
Yep.
That's not all, though. There are cornerstones that are all the way up and down this corner that jut out at different angles, and almost every stone is like a unique stone. They've actually been modeled in like ZBrush and whatnot and baked down into the texture. So like there's tons of unique, cool brickwork all the way down that corner. It's not a single polygon sharp line. It's got cornerstones and detail. And down at the bottom, there's like a little bit of dirt and rocks where, you know, you have a wall that like, you know, dirt kind of builds up against it just a little bit. You have some extra stones that maybe have fallen off the wall and stuff like that. It's nice and detailed. And then the comparison image likes to throw up this one that just came out a few weeks ago of Geralt riding up to this like outpost tower, similar stone in the middle of nowhere. And this image actually caught my eye as being pretty rough looking because a similar corner of that stone is almost completely just a polygonal edge. It has like maybe 2 little chips cut out of it, but there's no cornerstone detail, and there's not a lot of detail down at the bottom. There's a couple extra rocks and stones, but the grass just kind of runs up to it. You can tell that tower was just kind of placed there and wasn't really like blended into the terrain like the first image was. And okay, so obviously the version with tons of stone detailing looks superior, right?
Right.
I'm not convinced, however, that this is actually the same location. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it is not the same location. It looks very different. It's hard to tell, though, because the other image is from a trailer that's 2 years old now. The game has changed a lot. Additionally, like all open world games, not every area is going to look like the homes that you start out in and the places where you meet the king and stuff like that. As an example, in GTA 5, not all of Sandy Shores looks as detailed as Trevor's trailer. Why? You spend a lot of time in Trevor's trailer. Unless you're a weird person, you don't spend tons of time over at the neighbor's trailer. You have to spend your resources in open world games efficiently. There's only so much memory to go around. You shouldn't expect every part of the world to look super detailed. At the same time, I would argue that that kind of rough-looking corner wall isn't a big deal. It still looks pretty good, just not like next-gen, super immersive, detailed world good as the first image. I think it's only a problem if a large majority of the world looks like the newer image, the rougher image. But I don't think that's the case. I think that's just the reality of open world games where even with 4, 5, however many years of development that you spend in your open world game, not every area is going to get a hand-painted touch. Sometimes you got to place your props and keep on moving.
Yeah.
And that's just my perspective. We'll obviously know once the game comes out, but I am very confident that this game, like you said, it's not going to be Crysis, but it could be the Crysis of RPGs, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Skyrim. I know you weren't a huge fan.
Well, I liked it, but I'd already played so much of Oblivion over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It was just more of the same, and I liked the world of Oblivion a little better.
Yeah.
So I probably played 15 hours of Skyrim total over a couple different attempts, but I just didn't get sucked
Which
into
is nothing
it.
for Skyrim.
Yeah, it really isn't. But like, I just didn't get sucked into it because of whatever else I had going on.
Yeah. So, like I said, I really got into Skyrim. I modded it to death. And by the end, Skyrim was looking pretty good. But I also did a little bit of modding work in Skyrim. And as great as those engine updates were for that engine in 2011, it's still a very dated looking game. It can look good. It can look good. But a lot of times it just looks acceptable. Whereas, from what I've seen of The Witcher 3, most of the time it looks really good, and then occasionally it looks acceptable. It's kind of like the reverse.
But you have to remember, anything you've seen from like 2 years ago, it's called a vertical slice. It means,
Yes.
hey guys, for this trailer, we need clips of him riding through this area, we need him fighting someone in this area, and then they'll throw people at it just to get just that stuff ready so they can make something to show to people, to journalists or at E3 or something, to get people excited about the game. You know, just off screen of Geralt riding through, you know, that beautiful field at sunset is a whole bunch of broken, crappy draw distances and things that aren't loading in and everything else. They're just trying to show you something really cool so you're excited about the game.
Yeah, don't turn the camera around and look at the blank field behind him like it's like an object floating in the air.
It's very possible that they've had to retool large amounts of the world since then just because things came up, things change, the scope of the game changes, like the stuff they want to implement changes. I mean, there are realistic limitations to making a game. Games are super expensive to make these days, especially games this big. So even if they had to compromise the visuals a little bit in some areas, which, you know, they had to on the consoles, that's not a knock against them, but like there are different levels of fidelity you'll be able to get on different platforms. The core experience should be just as good, and it's a really good looking game. Don't worry about which version is ever so slightly better. Unless what they've done handicaps the game in some measurable way, I think people are really just, they want something to be upset about. They want something to be outraged about. And they're latching onto this. And I think it's people who don't really aren't real fans of The Witcher.
Yeah, there it is.
For a minute.
45 minutes in and someone finally dropped the real fans.
Oh, we did that right at the beginning. We're book readers.
Oh, that's true. That counts.
Yeah.
One final note on the downgrade issue before I put it to bed forever and hopefully never see a comment about it again.
Until the potato masher Witcher video, I'm sure.
I don't even want to think about it. I think what separates this from the Watch Dogs fiasco last year, and I think part of the reason why people are so skeptical is because of the Watch Dog fiasco, where the vertical slice was so far removed from reality, and the downgrade was so massive that it was kind of a shock. Whereas the worst comparisons I've seen for The Witcher 3, just it doesn't look that bad, honestly. Like, it's not a generational downgrade. And CD Projekt Red has been very honest about releasing footage on a regular basis over the course of the years, so that as they move further past that vertical slice that was just a small area of the world, that we got an up-to-date look at how things were looking. Like, it's a very honest look. They haven't tried to hide behind anything. Whereas
Definitely.
the Watch Dogs got like one trailer 2 months before launch where everyone's like, wait, what is this?
The E3, they showed it again at E3 like 6 months before launch.
No, it was like a month before, wasn't it?
No, because it didn't launch in the fall.
No, it launched in June.
Oh, okay, then yeah.
It was like a month. It was like a month before the game came out. They launched a trailer and everyone was just shocked.
Which shouldn't surprise anybody who's been gaming for a while, because like if you followed any launch release window games, like for new console generations, they all kind of suck in one aspect or another. They're there to show off how cool stuff can be, and they all have problems in one form or another, just because it's hardware you haven't had your hands on for very long. Like you're crunched, you have to get it out at a certain time. Like those games have tons of they have tons of corners that just have to be cut, and that's the reality of the situation.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas The Witcher 3 has been delayed just because they could, because no one could tell them not to, and they wanted to make it the best game it possibly could be. And they've said for a long time, it's been feature complete for a really long time. Like they capped what they were going to put into the game at a certain level, and then they just said about refining it. So you're not getting a game that was just hastily shoved out onto shelves. They've definitely taken their sweet time. So if they have chosen a particular visual fidelity level, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt in assuming that that's the absolute best way to present that world. And if they could have just done a better version, they would have waited longer and done it, because they've had time to do it, and they seem pretty confident that this is the best way they could put this game out there.
These guys know what they're doing. They're confident. They made the right decisions that I've seen to delay the game multiple times, like you said, because they publish their own games outside of the box copies, and they could. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
And I know it sounds like Dave and I are being fanboys right now, and in ways we are, but it's earned. There aren't many developers that I will give like my unwavering approval to for things, but CD Projekt Red, granted, they've only put out 2 games really, so you know it's hard to be like, look at their 20-year track record. But as a company, they have a 20-year track record of being excellent, and the games they've put out have been
phenomenal.
Awesome for their scope and their budget and everything else. You got to keep it in context, but they have done a great job, and they have been very forthright throughout the process of all of their games. And we believe them when they say something, when they say a game is done, when they say they need more time, we believe them. And there aren't many developers that we would feel that way about. Like, we don't feel that way about DayZ. And we've been big fans of DayZ, but it's had enough stumbles and falls that you can't just give them carte blanche approval. But CD Projekt Red really is that good. Like, when they say something needs to be a certain way, it does. And that's why we're really excited for the game. Like, I mean, it's almost everything they've showed is so good, but it's their pedigree that matters so much too. Not to the same extent, but like, think about it. When a new GTA game comes out, I don't need to watch a trailer, and I don't need to read about all the features and stuff. Like, the fact that Rockstar North is making a new GTA game automatically is 10 million units day one. Automatically. The fact that they're rolling something out, it could be crap and it would be 10 million units on day one. It doesn't matter, because they've earned it. And it's the exact same way for us with CD Projekt Red, and that's why we're excited about The Witcher 3.
going back and playing The Witcher 1, I definitely had that Dark Souls feel where it's like, look at these awesome ideas. Look how well we're putting them into a game, but please, someone give us more money, please.
Look at that 300 millisecond lag on the sword swings. Oh, that's something.
I know we mentioned the console versions briefly. I just want to touch on that just once again, that we have seen some console footage. Some console copies have actually leaked, and I've seen like 1 minute of footage just to take a look at how it looked, and honestly, the port looks fantastic. It is 30 FPS. It's only 1080p on PS4, 900p on Xbox One, but visually, I mean, it's one of the best looking PS4 games out there, so if you're a console player, then you also have good things in store for you, for sure.
Now, I know this is a hypecast, but could we briefly, I feel like we're at a kind of a natural stopping point.
Okay.
And lengthwise, we probably should be.
We could go on for like until launch day, just hyping.
Could we talk about some of our mild concerns or things that we don't know enough about that we maybe are apprehensive about the game? Because I do have a couple, very, very small, but I have a couple things that
go for it. Go first.
So like you said, it's a great looking PS4 game. You could say it's maybe as good looking as Bloodborne. The problem with that is Bloodborne runs horribly on the PS4. It is 30 FPS on a good day because of its visual fidelity. I might be worried about, will the console versions of The Witcher 3 have the same density to the world? And will the combat and stuff, will it still work the same? I'm really worried that the frame rate's going to stumble. And I'm a little worried about it on the PC just because I think it's so good looking and it's so big. I think the game, I think it'll probably run well, but I think you are going to need good hardware. I mean, the recommended and minimum specs certainly indicate that you'll need at least pretty good hardware. But I do have my worries that people are going to get hung up on the fact that they can't play this game on ultra settings on their 750 Ti or on the Potato Masher, even though the lowest settings or the low settings will likely look really, really good. I have to assume on the PS4 it's 900p, right? Or is it 1080p?
It's full HD, 1080p.
Okay, 1080p, 30 FPS. You have to assume that it probably, the frame rate is going to stumble a little bit over that. And it's probably, they're running about the limit they possibly can, and it's probably running on medium settings at best. And that's not at all digging the PS4 version, but
right.
I worry that people are really excited to play this and they're going to be disappointed by how much hardware it takes to make the game look as good as the stuff we're seeing in videos.
Because one thing to remember is that this game is developed, unlike a lot of developers that say this, it is a PC first game where they have developed it as a forward-looking PC game, for sure, like The Witcher 2 was.
Yeah, The Witcher 2, I went back to it this year. Like, it came out in what,
it's
2011?
Gorgeous. Yeah, 2011.
I had a Phenom 1090T hexacore, and you don't know AMD stuff. It sucks. I mean, it's an okay processor, but like it came out the same year as the 2500K, and the 2500K is superior in every possible respect. And then I had a Radeon 6870. And on medium settings, I was getting like 22 FPS the whole time at 1680 by 1050 resolution. And it looked great. I went back to it this year, and to get 45 FPS at 4K on a single R9 290, I was playing on like maybe medium. And it looked great. Like at medium, I think like it looked comparable to the YouTube videos everyone's fussing about. Like it's the type of game that you're supposed to come back to years later. Like if I was playing at 1080p still, I could turn everything all the way up, max it completely out. And that game looks ridiculously good. The Witcher 2 is comparable with, I think, pretty much any game that's come out in the past year or two. If you have the hardware to turn it all the way up. And I think this game is going to be like that, but I think people are going to be pissed that they can't run it like they want to. That's probably my biggest concern, is I think people are going to get hung up over the fact that their settings say low or medium, and they're going to ignore the fact that this is one of the best looking games that's come out in years.
That's a good point. That could definitely happen.
Because the same thing happens on the Potato Masher videos. Like if we have to turn some of the settings down, people get all hung up on the name of the settings and ignore, like, does the game actually look good?
Yeah,
Because
it's
a
like
game with a crappy
you're
art
putting things
style.
on medium settings. Like you can't do that. Like, well, the PS4 is medium settings. Like it's
Yeah, or like sure, the Potato Masher can play Dark Souls 2 at 60 FPS, everything maxed out, not even breaking a sweat. Dark Souls 2 kind of looks like crap. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that it's on ultra. Like it doesn't look that good compared to what else is out there. It's not a bad looking game, but like there's way better stuff out there. And I think The Witcher 3 is going to be one of those way better things that a lot of people are running on low and then fussing about. Is there anything you're concerned about or anything that you're apprehensive about or you're looking forward to seeing? Like when you read your first reviews, is there anything you're a little bit nervous to see?
I think, like you said, performance, just because traditionally these games have, at least The Witcher 2 especially, has really pushed what the visuals can look like. And this is their first open world game. And I think I'd be a lot more nervous if they hadn't delayed it twice. The fact that they delayed it twice, not to change the scope of the game, but to just polish the game. Well, I guess the first delay could have been just the scope, like they're still adding content. But at least this last 5-month delay, they said, hey, it's content locked, we're just polishing it. I am relatively confident that things are going to run well, but there still is a chance that there could be some rough stuff. I know that
I mean, it could run well, just require good hardware to do it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm racking my brain, and it is honestly hard to think of anything that I'm truly concerned about. Really, I know the story is going to be fantastic. After playing 1 and 2, as clunky as some of the first game's mechanics were, the story was so good, and every side quest was fantastic. Like these are handcrafted side quests. Like a lot of them, they've said for 3, like 1 and 2, can affect the main story, and they're not fetch quests. They have unique voice acting and characters, and there's different things that can go on. I know that the story is going to be good. I know that the world exploration is going to be good. I am very confident in the visuals, downgrade or not, doubters. Like it looks good, and it could have the potential to look incredible. So I'm confident about that. I say that like the only area I'm not sure about is the combat, just because the combat has changed so much between every Witcher game so far. I was going to say that
too. Yeah, like I don't feel like we've seen like a raw fight so far, have we?
Like, we
no
have
cuts, no music, but against people, not against like.
Yes. We
have, okay.
The PS4 footage that came out last week actually had like a 5-minute bandit camp fight. And the live stream actually had a ton of combat against monsters and humans. But this is why I'm actually still, I'm still very excited about the combat, but it's because I can't play it for myself, and it just looks like they're making all the right decisions. Like to me, having studied the past games and played them, having studied the live streams and all the information about the game, the third game that's available right now, it looks like we mentioned before, it's the best combination of like Shadows of Mordor, Dark Souls, and say The Witcher 2. And to me, that's like the trifecta of perfection for what I want the combat to be in 3. Like the stamina system from Dark Souls, the finishing moves, and the just Hollywood swordplay of 2, the speed and the impact and the sounds of Shadows of Mordor. That is what I want, and from what I've seen, that's what it looks like. But that's one of those things where until I sit down and get like an hour into the combat, I'm not going to really know how it feels in place.
Right, because someone who's an expert at The Witcher 2 combat could probably make it look like that. But for everyone else, like it's really, really good for like 5-second bursts, and then it's a little bit clumsy. And if you're using an Xbox controller, the sign selection menu almost doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like it's just, there's a whole lot of little things that kind of mar the experience. But if you watch a really good person playing it, you would never know any of that. So that I am curious to hear what a total newbie to this game thinks just playing through it for 20, 30 hours.
And actually, a lot of the people that we've seen play it so far have either been YouTubers who got like a few hours just to sit down and dive in and try what they could, or someone from IGN who got an hour or 2. And in the case of the official live stream last week, they had a poor game designer and like a level designer doing combat for the live stream and like changing save games, and he was so nervous, and honestly he was really bad at the combat. There were tons of like camera mislocks and unlocks and rolls in the wrong direction and misses. Like it was pretty awful. So we haven't, well, no, in the PS4 gameplay we got a pretty good look at the combat. But I've seen someone be bad at it, and I've seen someone be really good at it, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to feel about it yet. But it looks like it's exactly what everyone wants. But it just looks like it, so we don't know yet, is the problem.
Right. I think that's everything I'm that's all I'm concerned about. Everything else is pretty much pure, unbridled excitement.
And for us, that's like that's like one wheel being like 10% accidentally locked on the hype train. Like, it's not slowing the train down. The train is still full steam ahead. I think you guys, if you've made it through this entire thing, can see that if you're coming from a book reading standpoint, a previous game standpoint, or just a new player to the series, there are reasons to be excited, and I think by far many more reasons to be excited than apprehensive about this launch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
That basically sums it up, guys, if you can sum things up in an hour. We're excited, and you guys can expect more Witcher stuff from us for sure. It may be 3 months after the game comes out, once we peel ourselves off of our chairs and ask our families for forgiveness and call into work sick 3 months late. But you'll see us again at one point, and we'll see you guys then.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to this whole thing. If you made it all the way through, leave a comment that says Child of Destiny, because you're a special person.
See you guys.
Bye.